Assalamualaikum, guys. We are back here to look at part 8 of this examination of leverage funding, the pitfalls of bank leverage funding. We by now know quite well that Islamic bank have modeled their business against the conventional banking, and conventional bank is using leverage money to make loans. They are not using capital fund to make loans, and this model is adopted by all Islamic banks today. And the implication has been rather sad in the sense that the Islamic bank are not able to use the real al-bay' such as true sale, true lease, mudarabah, musyarakah, istisna, and salam, because the risk in the al-bay' by default is very high, because we do not know the outcome of this sale contract, because the consequences or the outcome of al-bay' is fully determined by the market forces. So we rely on nature, the market volatilities, to know exactly what can happen to the business. Of course, the business will be run in the most efficient and ethical manner, but the ultimate determinants of profit would be the business risk arising from market forces, which al-bay' have no control. So unlike riba, where the outcome of the riba contract is known by virtue of the agreement that was set upfront in the interest-bearing loan contract. So one of the application of al-bay' in Islamic banking that was documented well in the Bank Negara guideline on risk management, which is the capital adequacy framework for Islamic bank, where the regulator have outlined the nature of the Murabaha financing under the pretext of Murabaha by purchase order. And we can see that this document have defined what is Murabaha and what it can do, how can it be applied in Islamic banking. And it says that the Murabaha for purchase order contract refers to an agreement where the Islamic banking institution sells a specified asset that has been purchased or acquired based on agreement to purchase by the obligor at the markup price. So it implies that the customer will see the bank and relay his intention to purchase a particular asset, and with a commitment, putting a deposit or making the first payment, and he will eventually pay the bank by way of deferred payment, right? So we have that Murabaha by purchase order. So there's a purchase order by the so-called the customer, and he will put a deposit for or a commitment payment to evidence his seriousness in the purchase of this particular asset that will be paid on installment basis. So the AP or the agreement of purchase can be structured based on a binding or non-binding agreement, or under the so-called wa'ad agreement or a non-wa'ad agreement. So a wa'ad agreement will imply that it is a contract, while a non-wa'ad agreement is not a contract, it is simply an order. So this will have implication on the so-called riskiness of the exposure. So under the MPO transaction, the Islamic bank anticipate that the orderer or obligor will subsequently purchase the acquired asset. So it is different from a plain vanilla Murabaha contract, where the merchant or the bank will simply purchase, a collection of asset to be resold to an unknown or to unknown buyer. Let's say you buy in bulk Android phones or iPhone to be sold later to the prospective customer. So there is no pre-order of these smartphones, but the bank get into a Murabaha transaction where they will do the marketing and eventually they will get a buyer to buy these smartphones where payment is made on a deferred basis. So we can see also that this MPO in section 5.99, we can just magnify the section 0.99, an asset shall be treated as an inventory of the Islamic banking in the event that it is acquired under a non-binding MPO transaction and held for resale to the obligor, right? So meaning that whatever asset that the bank have acquired, in order to expedite the MPO, where the asset is funded by leverage money, funded by deposit fund, then this asset will be put on the banking book. It will be recorded in the banking balance sheet, and with the implication of which is the taking of ownership risk, as we have mentioned much earlier. Therefore, the bank is exposed to the risk of changes in asset price. So when the bank, take the asset on their book, then the bank is holding ownership risk, and any losses arising from changes in the asset price, then the bank will have to absorb those losses via the capital holding. So in terms of risk measurement, the capital charge for market risk exposure arising from the holding of the inventory shall be 15% of the asset value. So this is the so-called danger of using the MPO, given that the funding is coming from leverage money, it is coming from deposit, and any loss to the inventory due to price changes, adverse price changes, that loss will have to be absorbed by banking capital, and that banking capital would be computed based on the market risk formula of 15% multiplied by the value of the asset. And we can see here that if the Murabaha is a non-binding Murabaha, meaning that the prospective buyer may withdraw from the purchase, then the bank will have to hold this so-called machinery and bearing the losses if there is a decline in value. So if the Murabaha has no wa'ad, then it is a non-binding Murabaha. There is no guarantee that the bank can sell it to a customer. So the bank is exposed to what we call market risk. And so there is a 15% capital charge. However, if this MPO is a binding MPO with a wa'ad, so the wa'ad is assumed to be a contract. So if the customer fails to come up to purchase the machinery based on deferred payment, then it will be considered as a default, or in the sense that the bank would be able to minimize losses when the customer fail to come up to complete the purchase, right? So in the sense that MPO without wa'ad, then it can be highly risky to the bank, and therefore the capital charge would be the 15% multiplied by the asset value. So we can see that this process of Murabaha by purchase order, we can see in stage 1 is that when the bank obtain this purchase order from the prospective customer. So the bank would buy this machinery from the supplier using deposit fund, and then the title of the machinery will move from the supplier to the bank. So as owner of the machinery, bank puts asset on their balance sheet, right? And that will imply they will have to bear any losses arising from price decline. So in a sense, that bank will face business risk, that is loss due to market volatility, and as a result, they will hold high capital requirement over the exposure, high capital charges. Now, when the customer come in to buy the machine, so we can see in stage 2, the bank sells the machinery to the customer on deferred payment. Then the bank will face credit risk, right? In the stage 1, the bank faces business risk that will trigger higher capital charges. Now, when the bank sells the asset to the customer on deferred payment, where the asset will be used as a collateral against the financing, now there will be a lower capital charges, and since the asset is put up as a collateral, so this provides a guarantee to the bank that upon default, the bank should be able to recover the money they gave away by virtue of auctioning the asset in order to recover the money, right? So we can see in stage 1, the bank is putting the asset on their book. So the bank will be facing price risk, inventory risk, asset risk. This is arising from obsolescence. So if the holding period is quite long, then because we are talking about international trade, shipment, from China to Malaysia, so from China to the USA, from China to Europe. So once the bank conduct the sale through MPO, the bank is the owner of the asset. So during the shipment, the risk of the asset is carried by the bank. So there is a huge amount of business risk faced by the bank. And in stage 2, we will see that the bank faces financial risk because in stage 2 is when the customer buy the machine on credit, and as usual, bank will face credit risk, market risk, and liquidity risk. But since the Murabaha is supported by the machine is put up as a collateral against the facility, so the capital charge on in stage 2 is a bit much lower compared to the capital charge in stage 1. So this is the situation in the Murabaha by purchase order. Then inshallah, I think we can look into one example, one numerical example, to see how capital charges is accorded to the exposure given the number or example that we can further examine later on in the next video. So thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullah.